Welcome to Eye on the Illini, folks. We had a little bit of a late night as we've got radio shows that we've got to get ready for Illini fans across the state of Illinois. Got Larry Smith here with me. Larry, thanks for coming on the show tonight.
Mike, absolutely, man. Glad to finally it works out where I can join you guys.
Yeah,
You guys are killing it.
Well, I tell you what, we saw a. I got to be honest with you. This has been one of the greatest weeks as an Illini fan I've ever had, because Illinois historically doesn't do great in the bowl era, the bowls time of year, and if they're there, and then to have a big victory over a very capable and very competent South Carolina team, and then to follow it up with a record-breaking win over Oregon in basketball, ranked number 9 on the road. This is amazing. Well, I mean, what's this last couple of days been like for you?
Oh, it's like you. It's been incredible. If you're an Illini fan, this is seventh heaven. Friends texting you and just with all kinds of things that you can and some that you can't repeat out in public. And that's okay. We're all adults. But the big win was great. The 21-17 win in the Citrus Bowl over South Carolina. But then to see this 109-77, and as we were talking about as we were recording our radio show here that goes out to 6 states and 25 affiliates all across the Midwest here this weekend. As we were recording that final bit, Brad Sturdy had a little bit that said that this was not only the largest margin ever at a top 10 team for an Illinois team, it's the largest in college basketball since the AP began doing its poll. You didn't just go out and beat a team. You went out and beat a top 10 team. You didn't just beat a top 10 team. You went to their place and completely destroy them. I mean, look, it's one game. This team is not going to, they're not going to run the table. You can't. If you run the table, you're not going to win the national title. That doesn't happen anymore. Indiana 76 will be the last undefeated team. But you showed that you can get it done, not just with the guys you expect, Kasperi Shaka-Jonas and Kylan Boswell, but from guys off the bench in the first half. With KJ out with foul trouble, here comes Draven Gibbs-Lawhorn and Jake Davis, and they combined for 23 points off the bench. So they're telling Coach Underwood, hey, you play us as well. This is something that I think this is outstanding to get some production from these guys. Stop making KJ and other guys play 35 minutes a game. Clearly they can get it done. There's sparks off the bench. This team is very talented, and they've learned from the lessons from a rugged non-conference schedule, which was the reason they put that schedule together.
Yeah, I thought the most noteworthy thing about tonight is, besides just being fantastically entertaining for Illini fans, I thought that the fact that you could do this with KJ being ineffective due to some bizarre foul calls in the first half, and yet they managed to have guys step up, and then you end up having everybody get hot in the second half. I'm not certain. I would have to go back to blowouts in the 04-05 season and blowouts for the Flying Illini, but I don't know if I've seen any Illini team play better than that second half that I can think of.
We talk about the big game against Wake Forest back on December 1st, 2004. Wake Forest, number 1 team in the country, Illinois at number 5, and they just come in and beat them like 91-72. They really just completely dominated them. This was even more than that. I mentioned on radio just now that it reminds me of the Flying Illini team back in January of '89 on a Monday night, when ESPN had the big Monday games and Dick Vitale would come in town, right, Assembly Hall. And they just blew Purdue out of the gym like 120-78. I mean, it was a clinic. It was almost like a scrimmage for them. This reminded me of that in terms of, you look down and they're up 7 at halftime, and you go get a snack and make a quick phone call or something, or I don't know, check movie times for tomorrow night, to go out with your family, your girl, and you come back and they're up by 20. I mean, it was, they hit 10 of their first 12 shots, 9 of 12 from 3. And everyone did it. I mean, it wasn't just Gibbs, Lawhorn, and Davis. It was KJ coming up, scoring 16 points in the second half after he was scoreless in the first half. It's Trey White with a double-double with 20 points and 11 rebounds. It's Ben Rickhouse. Everyone waiting for him to hit shots, and he did. Ivisic hits a couple of threes, but only scores 8 points, only has 8 rebounds. you almost had two guys with double doubles at the number 9 team in the country. You've got to look. If you're an Illinois fan, you've got to be excited about this. Yeah, again, they're going to lose other games, but this kind of shows you what they're capable of. Now, can they again? Now you get a chance as you go to Washington, and Brad Underwood gets to say, "Okay, listen, put that aside." Just like you would in the NCAA tournament, you have another test. Another team's going to come at you here in 2 days, and so again, it's this is pretty cool.
No, that was it was, and I have to say, just from a standpoint of fans have been very antsy and even frustrated at times over Humrichhouse's play. I was very happy to see him break through and do it in dramatic fashion on the road against a top 10 team. You talk about confidence inspiring. He got his 18 points, but he took shots that weren't three-pointers. He was getting a few rebounds, but he did an awful lot on weak side help defense. We've heard about that, but tonight I think it was a little more clear what he was contributing on defensive end. I thought that was fantastic. And I felt like, I know it's probably not good enough for Will Riley's expectations, but he shot 40% out there, and I think he forced one shot, but I think for the most part, he was playing a little more within himself, and it was nice to see that as well.
Yeah, I think Will Riley, we all agree, is a future pro. I mean, but he's got to, and we have this on the front page right now of IlliniGuys.com, talking about we're grading the Illini, right? And all of us jump in and kind of talk about that. And that was one of the things that I wrote in my segment, my section of that, is that I want to see Will Riley take a deep breath and just slow down, let the game come to you. He's a tremendous talent. You come out, you score 31 points in your first game as a collegian. I know it's against the IU, but I mean, still, let the game come to you, and it feels like, again, he's beginning to round into shape with that. And with Humrichhouse, I agree. 7-11 shooting overall, 4 of 7 from 3. He was much more active with his feet. To your point, he didn't just go stand in the corner. I mean, he was doing a lot of things all over the court with this. Brad Underwood's been telling all the skeptical media, right? Just trust me, this guy's going to come out. He's going to hit 4 or 5 in a row. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I think the fact that they did this again in a road environment where they had lost their only true road game, that was the game at Northwestern, right, where they squandered a 10-point lead. This suggests that with Oregon being a much more talented, much better team than Northwestern, this suggests that, again, you've learned some lessons here in the last month, and Humrichhouse is one of those. It just, again, if he can put up these kinds of numbers and do double digits any night, it's another person to think of, another player to think about as you're trying to game plan for this Illini team.
Can you remember a game where a guy gets a double-double, goes 20 and 11? Also had, to be honest with you, 4 assists on top of that, but yet nobody's talking about Trey White because the team did so well. He had an incredible game, and boy, when he got opportunities, he went right at Oregon, and at the same time, he was able to get to the foul line. He's a mid-range game player, which is a little different than what Brad Underwood prefers, which is either at the rim or three-point land. But when he's hitting as well, this team is hitting at all levels. They're a nightmare to defend.
Yeah, I think this is where, again, we've talked about the schedule and how Brad Underwood set this up, right? I mean, very late in the game, all of a sudden he adds this exhibition game at Ole Miss. Why? He wants to go up against one of the older teams, in the country. They won 20 games last year, didn't make the NCAA tournament because their resume wasn't good enough, but they still won 20 games against a coach, Chris Beard, who he knows well, and who coached a Final Four just a few years ago, and he was at Texas Tech. So, good scheming. They looked disjointed. They did not look very good, but it was a good litmus test. And Underwood has scheduled these going through. You start the season, you play 3 money games, you go down and play in Alabama on a neutral court in Birmingham.
Yep.
You lose by double digits. The team that went to the Final Four last year that many think could win it all this year. That's a good litmus test. Okay, well, you lose there. You come back, you learn. Thanksgiving Day, you blow out Arkansas on a neutral court, right? And so, and then Northwestern game, you come back with Tennessee, with Wisconsin before that, and now this. So I think that it's one where these guys, and we have to remember, not only are they learning under this coaching staff, but they're also learning each other. They just came together in June. It, again, feels like, and they're not there yet, they're going to be they're coming together and gelling. And I think this is big, that if they just stop and say, wow, if we play together and we work together and we kind of do what we're supposed to do, we could be, and we've all agreed, this could be a very good team come March.
Yeah, I agree, and that was one of the things I was gonna ask you. Do your expectations for the team, did they change any based on what you saw on the court tonight, or did that just reinforce maybe what feelings you had?
It didn't change much for me because they shot 70% in the second half. And so anybody shoots 70% you're going to win the game, right? I mean, it's just the way it is. What I liked to see was, it was a game that I felt, again, they all came together. And what I liked is, this is what I liked also about the game Tuesday down in Orlando, the football game, is that the one thing we haven't had from Illinois teams, the big revenue teams, right? The ones that we talk about the most, football and men's basketball, is we haven't had, we're not clutch. How many times the Illinois fans joke around and say, well, yeah, that's what Illinois does. Illinois going to Illinois. Illini going to Illini. We're going to get there and then we're going to fall short. We're going to get there and then we're not going to complete the pass on a fourth down. We're not going to hit the shot in the clutch. We're not going to, whatever the case is. What I saw from this, again, this is where KJ going out in the first half, is that you had the reserves coming in and they picked up the slack. And not only that, I mean, I'm looking around. Do you know that Jake Davis in his first 9 games before Sunday against Chicago State, Jake Davis had scored only 8 points all season. He scores 6 in some extra time against Chicago State. It's a blowout against a lesser opponent, and he comes out and scores 12 in 8 minutes. So that's the thing, I don't take. It doesn't raise my expectation. My takeaway is that here's a team that has a lot of parts. They're really talented. They've got a higher ceiling even than last year's team because they're a deeper team, but they're really young. But what we're seeing right now is a maturation. And I think, again, that goes back to, the schedule, the way the schedule's set up. You've got the Duke game coming up next month. I think that's huge to step outside the Big Ten and go test yourself against another team that's a Final Four contender. Not that there aren't any in the Big Ten, but let's play that elite team from outside the way you've done against Tennessee and Arkansas and Alabama. And so I think all of these things, even if you go lose to Duke, it doesn't matter. You get a chance to experience that. And that's my takeaway from tonight, is that you have a team right now, you go out on the road and not just won a road game in the Big Ten. We know how hard it is to win in the Big Ten on the road, but you go out to Oregon in a new setting. There's a new environment, the new world, first and only West Coast trip of the season. And you put up this kind of a performance. To me, it says that they're maturing, and hopefully they can build from this.
This is the run my own business dream. This is the colleges paid for dream. This is the retire early dream. This is Busey, where your dreams and possibilities become moments through trusted guidance and expertise, through lifelong relationships. Because we're here to help you achieve the life you've always envisioned.
Yeah, this was you don't turn on the TV or go to a game expecting a historic performance. At the same time, you see where Brett Bielema has expressed frustration because he's thinking to himself, I wasn't here when Illinois choked on all this. This is not part of what I do. And Brad Underwood doesn't complain about it or mention it very much, but could they be in the midst of creating a new reputation for Illinois sports, along with Shauna Green, contributing to what Mike Small is doing, and all under the leadership of Josh Whitman, where you're turning Illinois into a brand that means winning, not coming up close and watching it slip through your fingers?
Yeah, I absolutely. Illini wrestling, doing well. We saw Illini baseball reach the NCAA tournament last year, right? I mean, it's a good time to be an Illini fan, and you have to give credit again to Josh Whitman and what he's done, bringing these coaches in. It's a new world. We've talked again on the Sports Spectacular, week in, week out now for the past 3+ years about that very thing. That right now is the landscape, is that you have a chance now with the expanded conferences, with the change, no more divisions, with NIL, the transfer portal. The gate is open right? For certain athletic programs, the entire schools or teams within that to kind of step up and say, well, okay, you're a blue blood, but we can step up. Listen, Indiana, I mean, great basketball history, absolutely. But you're going on 40 years since you hung that last banner. You better get some pledge. So, I mean, there's a chance right now that if you're in Illinois that you can become that next team. We've seen it already with basketball with Brad Underwood. Mike, I talk about it ad nauseum. You got to get to the second weekend. I don't care how many Big Ten tournament titles or conference regular season titles that you win. You got to get to the second weekend of the NCAA. Otherwise, it doesn't matter in terms of the national perception. If you want your name, Gonzaga, why is Gonzaga up there? They've been in the title game twice.
Yep.
They've been how many Final Fours? How many Elite Eights have they been to? That's why. And so it doesn't matter what conference they're from, because in the second weekend, they're going to be there. Michigan, even though Juwan Howard did very little, right, in his tenure, as it turns out, at Michigan, they were still that marquee team because under John Beilein, they'd been to 2 title games, one losing to Louisville and one losing to, I think it was North Carolina. I think it was, Roy Williams was there. But you've got to get that second weekend. Illinois finally did that last year. They finally popped the seal, right? They finally went over the top. They finally get in there. And then you have a game like Arkansas where 5.2 million households. That's how you build a brand. That's how you go in and build that. So you're always going to have Kansases, the Dukes, the UNCs, the Kentuckys, UConn, and what they're doing now with all which is just an anomaly. They won all their titles with a bunch of different coaches in 25 years. It's just nuts. But you have a chance now to put yourself in that category. And that's what Illinois is doing right now with Brad Underwood, with Shauna Green. Unfortunately, all her injuries. I mean, we've talked before. What would her team be like? And they could be undefeated if she had everyone healthy. But they only have about 7-8 players healthy every night. With Brett Bielema the same way. We've talked again on the radio show that he could become, and you said it yourself, he could become the first Illinois coach ever to win 10 games in back-to-back seasons. I know he doesn't like to talk about the past, but the past 70 years have been really, really bare for Illinois football. So he's got to just live with it because we're in awe of the things that they're accomplishing. It's a fun time to be an Illini fan.
Yeah, I do. I think that I'm going to have Sunday morning, I'm going to have a prediction column for 2025. And people who have known me for a while, I'm not one to generally go overboard on these things, but I do believe under the leadership of Josh Whitman, with really good coaches, really good plans, and then the ability to execute those plans, I think they have that opportunity. And I also think you're seeing a buy-in from the players that they're a part of something bigger than themselves, which is very hard to accomplish in this NIL Me Too era that we're in. And I think the coaches are figuring out how to build that. And I think that is going to pay off for this Illini program. And I'm bullish on what 2025 holds for Illinois. And I want to steal a phrase from the 80s, but I think the 20s belong to the Illini, very similar to Neil Stoner's the 80s belong to the Illini that we used to see on T-shirts back in the day.
You better copy that right now before you go to bed. Yeah, exactly. I think that especially with football, we've talked before that we don't see a lot of players, a lot of movement in the portal in terms of players leaving Illinois. The ones who leave, the Donovan Learys of the world, that makes sense. No one wants to see him leave, but he wants his shot, and so it's understandable. Yep. But you don't see guys coming in for 1 year and leave with Brett Bielema. And I think that's where the next piece now is basketball is so volatile. How does Brad Underwood build that year in, year out in terms of getting guys in? You don't want to recruit over, but you're trying to build the best team possible.
Although maybe he doesn't have to worry about that because he's got this team with 10 new players looking way ahead of what our expectations were for this time of year.
Sure.
Maybe Brad Underwood, with his junior college background, he's one of the few coaches who can say, sit at the poker table of basketball and say, deal me 10 and actually come up with a good season.
Well, and here's the other piece to your point. Let's play that out. It's not like you're running up against the Duke and North Carolina and Kansas teams of the 2000s who are going to have players there for 3 or 4 years. Everybody's changing their entire roster every year. Kentucky, literally at one point in April, had 0 players on their roster. So
Yeah.
everybody's doing it. So to your point, it's not like you've got that's why teams like Ole Miss and Alabama and Tennessee in some respects, teams like that are unique because they did return a core of players from a deep run last year. Purdue lost Zach Edey. They had some players back as well that were key players. I did throw them in as well. But yeah, I totally agree with you that it's one of these where when you begin to look at that and say, well, everyone's changing. Can you adapt? And that's one thing to your point, Brett. I don't know what has said. Yeah, and when I was in my junior college coach, I had a brand new team every year. Those lessons, learning again, 30 years ago may turn out to play very well as he tries to build this team to make a deep run in March.
Yes, and we're excited about it, folks. We wanted to come on. We normally would be on right after the game, but we wanted to at least come on for a few minutes after we got our radio show. If you're Illini fans, I'm just telling you, go to your podcast distributor, look for IlliniGuys Sports Spectacular, and subscribe to it. If you don't have a podcast distributor, you can go to the front page of IlliniGuys.com, and we'll have the audio version of it on the right hand side. You can download it there as well, and you can listen to it. Please go ahead and listen to it if you like to listen to Illini sports. You also like to hear guys have fun. We're not going to bitch and moan and scream at people. We are the anti-Stephen A. Smiths, but we're going to have fun. We're going to laugh. You don't have to worry about any politics. It's just Illini sports and big events. So we're going to talk some CFP. We're going to talk some Brett Bielema owning other coaches, if that happens. We're going to talk about all sorts of stuff, but it's going to be mainly Illini, Big Ten, and it's going to be all sports. So if you want something positive in your life that you're going to be happy you listen to, you're going to smile when you're done, we're right there for you. But we wanted to put this out tonight just for opportunity to be on here. We appreciate everybody who is stayed up this late, happens to be watching or listening. Thank you so much. We will be back, of course, with after the Washington game. We'll do the halftime live for Washington. That's on Sunday afternoon. And then we'll have the post-game show on after there as well. We look forward to that. And folks, again, opportunity to subscribe, IlliniGuys.com, 27 cents a day. Most important thing that you get is you get that sense of community because we have the message board. So it's not a one-way thing where you just read what we put out there and then you walk away. You can read what we put out there and then you can get into the message board and you can ask Larry, Brad, Matt, or Ked, what did you mean by that? Or I heard something different, and you have a two-way discussion. And there are thousands of Illini fans who are in there as well. You can get into discussions with people there, and it's a ton of fun. And we're, as Illini fans, we can argue about anything. So you got people who are going to debate what's the greatest season in Illini football or basketball, all sorts of things. We'd love to have you there. Feel free to go over and subscribe as well. Again, 27 cents a day, $99 a year. We haven't raised prices since we started, and we're proud to have people joining on. Larry, any final comments?
No. It's a good time to be an Illini fan. Let's enjoy this ride. 10-3 in football. Just set a record, largest win ever again at a top 10 team in the history of the AP poll on the road. These are fun times. Shauna Green's keeping it together, 11 wins already despite having all the injuries. Let's enjoy. Let's go get a win. Let's go get a dub at UW and come back home, get 2 wins next week.
Perfect. Until next time, folks, go Illini.
ILL.
I and I.